Hi, and welcome to Say Grace, Food for Thought and Hospitality. I'm Steve Palmer, and I invite you to join me as we explore the stories behind leaders in the hospitality industry and beyond. Say Grace is a place to reflect, connect, and savor thoughtful narratives. Everyone has a seat at our table. So pull up a chair and let's discover the transformative power of hospitality together. Welcome to Say Grace, where we talk about all things hospitality. I'm super honored and humbled and excited to have my friend John Fleer here today. Hi, John. I'm going to read your bio first, and then we'll get into it. A native of Winston-Salem, North Carolina, Asheville-based John Fleer has been named one of the rising stars of the 21st century by the James Beard Foundation and is a 5-time finalist for the organization Best Chef Southeast Award. You're like me, always a bridesmaid, never a winner. That's right. Over the course of his career, Chef Fleer has earned critical acclaim for the way he transforms local ingredients into world-class dishes. The unique foothills cuisine he helped establish at Tennessee's Blackberry farm walked the line between refined and rugged, fancy and familiar. The freestyle American cuisine he brought to downtown Asheville at Rhubarb and The Rhu offered a unique perspective on seasonal ingredients and celebrated his local partners. It's an honor to have you here. Hi, John.
It's an honor to be here.
How did you find food?
How did I find food? There's a couple places as a young person, or youngish person, where I think food found me. My grandparents lived in a home in Tidewater, Virginia.
Okay.
When I was very young, before they moved to Richmond. And they kept a garden, and they lived very close to the Chesapeake Bay, essentially on the Chesapeake Bay. So when we went to visit them, I had the experience, which I had never had before. And this was, I was 4 or 5 years old, 6 years old at most. Going to the garden, picking your food, cooking it immediately, going to pull up the crab pot at the dock down the street, boiling your crabs and picking your crabs and eating a dinner made just from that. So that has made, even though I don't think about it very often when I'm asked that question, I understand kind of what an indelible mark that experience made on me as a very young, impressionable person. I think the second place, I'll put a story in the middle. I was a latchkey kid. My mom was getting her doctorate in Raleigh at NC State in the mid 70s, driving back and forth from Winston-Salem to Raleigh. I was taking care of my brothers and sisters. I got a call one day from her, said, "I am not going to make it home in time to make dinner. I want you to make tuna casserole, and here's how you do it. Can of Le Sueur peas, big can of tuna,
Yep.
cream of mushroom soup."
Yep.
And I know there's arguments about this, or disagreements about this, but we were a cornflakes family. That's what got tossed into this casserole.
Yeah.
There are some who are Durkee's onions families. Respect, but I don't agree.
Yeah.
And that was the first thing that I actually cooked. So
I love it. I love that we're debating tuna casserole. Only Gen Xers, only people from that era. I appreciate this debate.
No fresh produce.
No.
Everything from a can.
Yep.
So anyway, it was successful, thank goodness. But really, the second part of that introduction to food was, I was lucky enough throughout my childhood, my parents were very insistent on us traveling as a family. So I had the opportunity to be in Europe, particularly a few times as a child.
Wow.
Completely mind-opening
Right.
experience. But when I was in college, I did a study abroad in Venice, Italy. The professor who we were all in a house together, 24 students, and the professor, I really owe so much of what I do to him. He divided us into what he called cooking groups of four people, and we were responsible for cooking for our cooking group once a week. So we had four days during the week when we were sort of obliged to cook for someone else, or cook for a group of others. And that would have been one experience had it been in Asheville, North Carolina, or Winston-Salem, North Carolina.
Sure.
But we were in this city that was so unique, divided into little neighborhoods. And of course, this was late 70s. So, I'm sorry, this was very early 80s. And so I had to go out and shop. And at this point, there was one supermarket in all of Venice that was at the extreme opposite end of the island. So never went to a supermarket. Had the privilege to go to a bakery, a butcher, a fruity vendolo to buy produce.
Right.
And so that exposure of establishing relationships with people in a language that I wasn't very good at speaking, for number one, but having that direct contact with someone about food and the food I was going to eat and prepare for others was incredibly impactful. And I didn't really understand the impact until a few years later. But beyond the food piece of it, you can't have a bad meal in Italy.
No.
And so I also, on the other 3 days, we as a group ate out quite a bit. And that was also eye-opening as someone who'd never spent much time in restaurants.
Right.
My first real exposure to restaurants was, other than fast food, was not in the United States. It was
I'm so jealous.
in Italy.
I'm so jealous. Goodness.
But what absolutely, I think, blew me away and made the longest term impact was being in a place where there was this sort of culture of not only eating, but dining together. So the primary thought you had during the course of your day is, what am I going to eat and who am I going to eat with?
Right.
And I think that's the biggest piece of that sort of 6 months of my life was, okay, this isn't the culture I'm used to, but I dig this.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, also being able to, when we were in these cooking groups, invite local college students, people we hadn't met, to come in and eat with us. And they were also generally either they weren't obliged. They were, I think they were culturally compelled to show us how to cook and how to eat and how to enjoy each other's company. And so, I had people teach me how to, make tiramisu. I had people teach me how to make an espresso properly. All of those.
Right.
Top to bottom. So that kind of cultural exchange is a very impactful time. And I certainly owe a lot to Jim Bearfield, who was the professor there, who was also one of my parents' neighbors.
I'm going to make my daughter go do a semester in Italy.
You
now.
should.
Yeah, I mean, oh goodness. So after college, when was the first time you kind of were in a kitchen? I know many of us had jobs just because we needed to do something till we figured out what we were doing. When did you know?
When did I know?
When was the light bulb moment for you that you were like, I could do this for my life?
So the pre-light bulb moment, which I also often reflect on, was when I was in high school. I was at a busboy.
Yeah.
I worked, from the time I was 12 doing something. And there was a steakhouse fairly close to our house in Winston-Salem, and got a job bussing tables, washing a few dishes, marrying ketchup bottles,
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Me too.
And the sort of lasting memory of that was being able to hang out with the rest of the staff, the community of the restaurant, the community of the kitchen, after hours.
Right.
And remembering how special I felt by the fact that I was hanging out with these folks that were mostly at least a little bit older than me, probably college students and young adults.
Right.
And I was 16 years old, whatever. But that the bartender would make me a shift drink of some tropical juices and
right.
whatever else, as a sort of show of hospitality and a show of belonging to the group. And I think didn't realize it at the time, but I was kind of hooked on that. I got hooked on that community of the restaurant.
Yeah.
And that camaraderie, as you say. But I did not ever intend to do this for a living. I don't know if you did.
I didn't until I was, I think, 26 or 27.
Okay. Well, I was maybe a year earlier in my life. But I went to college, majored in religion and philosophy. My father, now a retired professor, was a professor of political science at Wake Forest. And I grew up on a college campus. And I'm like, man, this is the life. This is exactly what I want to do. I want to be in the classroom. I want to be, I want to be in this community.
Right.
And have my summers off.
I was just laughing at that to be in chef.
Yeah, kind of a radical shift.
Yeah.
But so then I graduated college, and I was still on that path. I enrolled in a graduate degree at UNC, so I crossed the great divide between Duke and UNC, and enrolled in a program in what's referred to as religion and culture. But basically, it was a program designed to ask and occasionally try to answer the question, why people do what they do.
As it relates to religion, or just
as it relates to being a human.
Okay. Did you come to any conclusion?
Nope. Okay. And that may have been part of the frustration.
Please tell me. Why am I doing this?
So I got married right after college. My wife was in a PhD program at UNC, and I was enrolled in this master's program. And so I decided I needed to work to pay my part of this endeavor. And so I walked up, we lived in Carborough. I walked up to this restaurant called Aurora, which had a wonderful 25-year life in Carborough and Chapel Hill. And I had zero restaurant experience other than marrying ketchup bottles. And Gwen Higgins, who was the chef there, wonderful, sort of industrious, hardworking woman, was the chef, a longtime chef at Aurora. And we interviewed, and she said, I know you don't have any experience doing this, but something tells me that you're worth taking a chance on. And
I love that.
So I got a job working as the pastry cook or she was the overall chef, so I was making her recipes, but I did pastry about 50% of the time, and I rolled pasta the other 50% of the time. So, and I did that for about a year. And I was like, man, I am having so much more fun doing this work than I am being in a library, being in a classroom, being constantly stressed about, trying to think an original thought.
Right. Right. There's order in a kitchen. There's structure.
There's some structure.
Yeah.
And so there was this moment when I was in. So all that to say, I was having a great time, and it worked with my schedule because my graduate school classes were in the afternoon, and I was waking up early and going in and to the hum of the pasta machine and making pastry. But the critical moment came when I was sitting in a graduate seminar at one of my professors' houses. There were like 5 of us in this program, so we didn't spend a whole lot of time actually in classrooms. We were always in comfortable places. And not to get too heady, but we were having this discussion about a philosopher's work, Ludwig Wittgenstein. The book was called Philosophical Investigations, and we were having this philosophical discussion. He has this section in this book about craftsmanship, and that was a moment of extreme self-reflection, because I stopped in my head on the sofa in this group of all these people, 5 or 6 people, like, I don't know a damn thing about craftsmanship. How can I talk about this?
Right.
I am in the totally wrong place. Maybe I can do this someday if I actually learn a craft.
Right.
But I have no right to have a conversation about craftsmanship. And so at that moment, I decided that just wasn't the right place for me. This was 2 years into this,
Right.
year and a half into this graduate program. And I was already at least had my toe in the water of a craft.
Yeah. Sucking you in.
Sucking me in. So that was the watershed moment. And it was one that came at a moment when I realized I wasn't in the right place.
Right.
As I think it's not an uncommon experience.
No.
Probably doesn't happen a whole lot of times in a graduate seminar about the philosophical investigations, but
craftsmanship.
I think a lot of us who are in the hospitality arena have that moment when it's like,
this is what I'm doing.
I'm doing the wrong thing. I need to be doing the right thing.
The right thing. Who do you think in your early days of cooking informed? Maybe it was multiple people. So you went from that. Who do you think most influenced the way you approach food as a executive chef, as an owner? Was there a moment of walking to a farmer's market? Was there a chef who you would look at and go, I talk a lot about mentorship and how important that is. Who was your mentor? So
this is sort of mentorship from afar, because we didn't meet officially until much later. But Ben Barker opened Magnolia Grill.
Oh yeah.
The year I graduated from Duke, and it was less than a mile from where I lived in Durham. And again, I didn't grow up in restaurants, and talked a little bit about those Italian experiences, but I'd never really cooked for anyone other than myself after the Italy trip. But I remember going to Magnolia Grill, scraping some pennies together as a college student and going to eating at Magnolia Grill. And I'm like, this looks like so much fun. It was Ben and Karen's food was so playful.
So good.
And so good. And it told such great stories. And it was attached to that local food economy in Durham and Chapel Hill. And, again, it's one of those experiences that at the time, the impact was there, but I don't think the profundity of it really hit me until that time that was when I was in Chapel Hill and then went off to culinary school. And I kept thinking about this restaurant. And that was always in my mind. I remember being in class in culinary school, and the teacher was going around the room saying, name 3 chefs that you admire. Right. And I remember my answer was a 3-parter. I said Daniel Boulud, Edna Lewis, and Ben Barker. And I think the professor had heard of 1 and 2, but not of Ben and Karen. But yeah, that was the ability to tell stories, be playful, be connected to your community. Those are the 3 pillars, I think, of that I've tried to carry with me throughout my career. And it's thanks to them.
I love that. You ended up at Blackberry Farm, which is, royalty in this part of the world. We met, I think it was 2001. But you were there in the early stages, right as I think Sam maybe was. I remember hearing tales of he was staging at the French Laundry, and Sandy had sent him around to see. What was that like? Did you know you were really sort of planting seeds that would bear the fruit it has today?
I knew nothing.
I love it.
I had no right to have that job.
I love the honesty. I love the honesty.
So they recruited me straight out of the Culinary Institute. I was doing a fellowship, basically serving as a sous chef to one of the chef instructors in one of the public restaurants. And the dining room manager of that restaurant was also teaching a continuing education class. The innkeeper for the Bells for Blackberry was there taking this class, and I had overstayed my welcome. I was having so much fun, and such a good time doing this fellowship that I think it was supposed to last for 6 months, and I ended up staying a year. And so the instructor that was, teaching classes that the innkeeper was in, was like, she made it known that they were recruiting, and she's like, well, you have to meet John. He's finally ready to go back to the South. And I think he's tailor-made for what you're trying to do. Tailor-made, except I was just graduating from the Culinary Institute of America and only had been a busboy and a pastry cook.
Right.
Had not a whole lot of experience. But I ended up there and was totally unqualified to be there, but absolutely loved it and was really excited about what I could do. I just didn't know what that was. So, we'd run service, we'd run through a day. And it was a small team. We were doing 7 days a week, breakfast, lunch, and dinner with 6
Wow.
people in the kitchen.
Wow.
It was also a much, much smaller. It was 23 rooms.
Yep, I remember.
So it was a much, much smaller. This was in 92, which is a year and a half after they had opened to the public.
Mm-hmm.
And so we'd go through the day, and I would stay in for 2 or 3 hours after service, after everyone else had left, just trying to put the pieces together and figure out what I was doing, because I truly had not had the typical path of ending up as the chef of a restaurant with so little background, real background, real work. And so I just put my head down and
fake it till you make it, baby.
That's right.
But don't you think, I don't know about you, for me, the big moments in my career have been, the big learning moments and really inspirational have been when honestly I've been put in positions that I was absolutely not qualified. And that happened to me a lot. I don't know why. I never had this like mentorship,
Right.
AGM, GM. It's like, you're a waiter, you're a GM, you know, and we're doing 5 million and figure it out,
Right.
you know? Yeah.
No, 100%. I mean, it's great to have that pathway, but if those aha moments and leaps in your career happen at your own making, and you also precede them with plenty of mistakes,
Right. Yeah.
then I think it builds a foundation that's it's different. It's different. I won't say it's better or worse, but it's certainly all that I know, and I feel pretty strong in my foundation now. I haven't for decades, but
what made you want to leave there? Like, what was that moment?
I mean,
where you were like, maybe I need to go do, because you were there for a decade,
almost 15 years.
Yeah.
So I made this deal with myself at the worst time. So it's probably 6-8 months into this time at Blackberry, and really feeling the weight of the fact that I wasn't qualified to do the job.
Right.
And that I feared that I was, because of that, was creating an unnecessary burden or chaos or whatever to the organization. True or not, that I was feeling really, really unsettled. And I remember my sister-in-law was a baker in restaurants in Wilmington at the time. And I remember calling her and saying, "Hey, will you put your feelers out? This isn't working. It's hard. It's chaotic. I'm not sure I can do this."
Right.
And then sometime soon after that, I was like, "You can do this if you don't look for an end. If you don't look for an out."
Right.
So I made this bargain with myself that I would put my head down for 5 years and do whatever I could to get it right.
I love that.
And so I did. I put my head down. I worked too much. I worked hard. I thought nonstop about what I was doing, and that's what this industry is. It can be quite all-consuming.
Yep.
And so from 8 months to 5 years, it was never think about not doing this. Just
do it.
Just plug. Just do it. And so 5 years came, and I looked around. So this is going better. Put your head back down. Let's go for another 5.
That's so admirable, John.
And so we were almost at 15, and lifted my head up again, and it's time for something new. And it was also at that point, you know, we had 3 kids, and I hadn't done my best as a father. I had tried as a father, but I realized that I needed to do better in that arena of my life. So I actually took a little bit of time away, coached soccer, you know,
Did dad things.
supported my kids, and got to go to more school stuff, more sports games, support my wife more. So, but those were, I look back on so much of that time at Blackberry, as I learned so much, and I met and worked with such amazing people.
Yeah.
And there's something really, I used to say that, I don't know if you had this experience when you first visited Blackberry, but I always felt like when people drove in to the property for the first time, someone up above was sprinkling magic pixie dust on everyone.
Oh yeah.
And everyone, the guests and the team were just all so receptive to taking care of people and being taken care of.
Yes.
And it was that sort of, those lessons in hospitality that I've lived.
That's what it's all about. Yeah. That's the sauce right there, man. Taking care of each other when you boil it all down.
Yeah.
You have been referred to as the godfather of Appalachian cuisine, and, really is one of the first guys who identified it. What is Appalachian? What does that mean to you? Because you were the first chef that I remember sort of calling it out and saying, we're cooking food of this place. And in a way that it had not been, the low country food had been defined for decades and decades. What does that mean to you? Other chefs refer to you as that person.
One thing you have to realize, though, is that I'm an adopted son of Appalachia.
Right.
I'm not a native.
Right.
And there are a few chefs who are native to the area, and who I'm sure that who in many more ways and more deeply sort of deserve that moniker of
Sure.
the godfather of Appalachian cuisine. I landed at Blackberry, and I had no idea where I was. And I used food as a way to figure out my place on this, what initially was an alien planet.
Right.
And so whether it was recipes, techniques, ingredients, I sort of went into this deep dive to say, all right, I got to figure out where I am and what this is all about. And the other thing that was important to me that I don't think was necessarily in the minds of the Bells who owned Blackberry, was that I looked around and I said to myself, this is a beautiful place. It's in a beautiful place, but it's a resort, and we can go one of two ways. We can either serve food that is friendly to everyone.
You're right.
that they expect at whether they go to resort A, B, or C. They're going to get something in this realm of food, or we can give people an experience of a place. And so I chose the latter. So it's like, okay, I'm going to use our food as a way to instruct people who are visiting Blackberry from all over the country and, eventually all over the world, what this place is all about, and where I want them to feel like they are in East Tennessee. They are not in an anonymous resort or restaurant.
Right.
That could be anywhere on the planet. So I set about to explore these ingredients and these recipes and these techniques. And, for me, a lot of that at the time was about figuring out what was unique about what was unique about Appalachian food in this broader Southern genre of cooking.
Right.
As I said, I spent a lot of time in Tidewater. I grew up with tuna casserole, but also plenty of, Southern cooking at the same time. And so it was collard greens. It was country ham. It was forage, a lot of sort of foraged morels and mushrooms and that sort of thing. And is also a much simpler, more direct style of cooking that sort of encourages eating together around a table and focusing on simplicity and the comfort of others. And, I think the word, a lot of the, a very common word used about Appalachia, but also Appalachian food is hard scrabble, using ingredients that are easy to come by, inexpensive, not, it's no caviar and foie gras.
Right, in Appalachia, right.
In Appalachia, so.
Sure. And then that led you to rhubarb.
It did. I made a stopover in Cashers for a few years. I helped
Canyon Kitchen.
Open Canyon Kitchen, sort of as a.
You were done coaching soccer at that point.
No, I actually wasn't. I did them both.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, it was. I mean, it was sort of was a kind of a favor to the Jennings and Easton family who run Sunburst Trout, and they were developing this community. It was 2008, 2009. All community development of real estate had come to a standstill.
Yes,
they had a half built what was going to be a community center, a barn that was going to serve as a community center, and Sally and Dick Jennings said, "Can you come this summer?" This was the summer of 2009, so about 2 years after I left Blackberry, and just bring some life to this building on Friday night, Saturday night, and Sunday brunch. So I'd lived in Tennessee. I'd commuted every weekend. Okay. And people liked what we were doing. So we expanded the hours the next year and the next year. And so I did that actually for 4 years solid, and then sort of was on board helping the transition as I opened Rhubarb in 2013.
And why did you pick Asheville?
It's not the only answer, but the best answer is the farming and artisanal community.
Yeah. It's so strong here.
It is so strong. And one of the decisions that I made when I left Blackberry, and so early on when I had developed at least a little bit of sense at Blackberry, Chris Bell asked me to sort of write this vision about what I wanted Blackberry to become. Some have come to call it my manifesto, but it was about being self-sufficient, developing a farm at Blackberry, where we were producing a lot of our own product, and that we were sort of remembering and working off of our shared agricultural heritage. And we ended up doing that, and they've done it even by leaps and bounds more than I ever imagined. One of the decisions I made when I left there was that in my next role in this industry, I want to flip that, and instead of being in a silo where we produce all that we can produce, I want to insert the restaurant that I'm into a broader community of producers.
Right.
And so there couldn't be a more perfect place than Asheville for that, to sort of build scores of relationships that then makes your restaurant merely a piece of the puzzle that creates the community. So that was, again, there couldn't be a better place than Asheville to do that.
And when you opened, did you get the response you thought you would get? In terms of, did the community support you in the way that you...
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And I think that the reason I paused, the most important thing to me was the response of the farming community.
Right. Okay.
And yes, I got that 100%. And then together, me as the restaurateur and them as the sort of foundation of what we did, I think we're able to meet at the table with the guests and sort of triangulate this great relationship.
What surprised you about owning your own restaurant? Good or bad? Because I feel like it often, for us, it might be different than we thought it was going to be, and maybe not. Maybe it's exactly... I always find there's a difference in ownership.
There's a difference in ownership. One of the blessings I had at Blackberry, to go back to that point, is that the owners, I can't say that they were absentee, but they didn't live on property.
Right.
They while I was there, lived in Mobile, Alabama, and Atlanta because of Sandy's work.
Yeah.
They were ever present. Their spirit was ever present. But in the day-to-day, they weren't there for questions and reference. And so I felt the responsibility of an owner.
Okay.
And so that part of a restaurant was not necessarily new to me. And I think that, in our relationship when I was at Blackberry, they often said that, thank you for acting like an owner. We appreciate that. We cannot be here, and we really value that about you. Anyway, so that the weight of that wasn't unusual. It sounds silly, but the one of the big shocks was the sort of maintenance side of a restaurant. It's like,
Yes.
I am not a technical person,
Me neither.
but I learned so much about air conditioning and plumbing. I don't touch electricity. Just because when when people need those things to work, you're the person that they look to.
Mm-hmm.
And you can be on the spot a whole lot quicker than an electrician or an HVAC
Yep.
technician. So
Yeah.
I mean, I know that sounds crazy, but that was the one thing that I would never have expected that.
My friend Scott Crawford in Raleigh called me. He had opened his first restaurant like 6 weeks, and it was the dead of summer. And he called me. He was freaking out. It was like 7:30 on a Saturday night. He said, "I don't know what to do," and I'm like, "What's up?" "It's 80 degrees in the restaurant." I'm like, "Have you called a technician?" "Yeah, he wants 20 grand to fix it." And I was like, "Well, how much money do you have in your checking account?" And he was like, "I've got 21 grand. I said, "Well, it's Friday night. I think you'll be all right." And I laughed and I said, "Welcome to owning a restaurant." But people don't realize, I think, it's like the fragility of cash flow. And like, as an owner, the plumbing goes out, and it's a wonder more restaurants don't fail. It's, yeah, owning is different. Owning is different. Well, you made it. Well, listen, first off, thank you for, was it 10 years at Rhubarb?
It's 11. Yep.
I thought so. I had many, many meals there. I love that restaurant. And thank you for that. You decided to close.
I did.
Tell me about that. Talk about that. That's got to be a big decision.
It's a big decision. It was a big decision. It was certainly it was the most difficult thing I've ever
I bet.
even considered. But the storm happened almost a year ago.
Yeah,
now
we're coming up on it.
Coming right up on it. And it was something that I had already been thinking about, primarily because it's a very sort of technical thing, but it's real. We talk about cash flow and
Yep.
etc. I had approached our landlords about the terms of the renewal of our lease, which would have happened next in early 2026, and put it simply, we didn't agree on the valuation of that lease.
Yeah.
And so I felt fairly certain at that point that at the end of that lease that I would close the restaurant.
Right.
Unless, there was always the possibility that Providence would happen and we would come to an agreement.
Right.
But certainly that had planted the seed.
Right.
The storm happened, and Asheville was without water for 8 weeks. Almost my entire culinary staff evacuated permanently. And, I can't say that as a 22, 23-year-old kid who was new in the industry and was facing the prospect of not knowing when their job would return,
Right.
or when they would be able to take a hot shower.
Yes.
I wouldn't have gone to a city that had jobs and water.
And water. Yeah.
And so I certainly don't harbor any ill will toward. And we had at that time had a slightly younger staff than I had sort of traditionally had.
Right.
It's just the ebb and flow
Yeah.
of staffing. And so, it was the question of whether to try to rebuild a culinary team from essentially the ground up,
Right.
knowing that 1 year later, the chances were pretty high that I was gonna
Be done.
be done, and there also the unknown of what was the unknown for me of what was going to happen in Asheville over the next
Right.
in that year.
Sure.
And I went out to my farmer friend, because they're our most sort of foundational farmer, and we stood in their greenhouse, and I'm like, I'm thinking about closing Rhubarb, and I was just like so wrecked inside. And he just put his arm around me, and he's like, you need to do what you need to do. He said, don't worry about, and that was one of the biggest concerns was, I talked about injecting myself into this,
right.
and the restaurant rather, into this community of farmers. Well, I never thought about what would happen if I had to pull that out.
If you weren't a source of income for them. Yeah.
And so that was really the most painful part of that decision. But I got some permission.
That's beautiful.
That everything would be okay. And
that's great.
Ultimately, I mean, we're operating the bakery.
So what have you been doing? What's life like now?
Well, there's still a little bit of limbo, but I think the bakery, the Rhu is running well. There's a great team there, and so I'm trying to make sure that at least those people have jobs, and that we can support, although on a much, much smaller scale than a big restaurant, that we can support these artisans and farmers. And I'm somewhat more involved in this organization that I helped found in the wake of COVID, called Equal Plates Project. I've been on the board since we founded it, and that's a very important part of my life, and I'm glad I can devote a little bit more of my attention and mind to it.
Love that. Do you miss the kitchen at all?
I do, but I don't miss the maintenance work.
Yeah. Fair.
I miss the community. The community of the kitchen. I do not miss the small irritations.
The things you don't think about: landlords, rent, leases, negotiations.
Being responsible for 75 lives.
Yeah. Yes.
And you have so many more lives that you're responsible
There's a lot more.
I don't know how you bear up under that.
I don't know, man. There's something wrong with me. Okay.
You have a big heart. There's nothing wrong with that.
Well, thank you. I care. So I had the Luminosa team on yesterday, and they said, what are you thankful for? What do you, where do you find your joy? And it is truly in watching other people love this work. I mean, and I mean that. It sounds so cliche, but like when I see somebody love this work, because I've been loving this work for almost 40 years, it's so gratifying, it just, because I think this is noble work. I never saw myself as though you're working in a second class industry. You're serving others.
Yeah, I mean, I tell people consistently that I find my greatest joy in looking out into this big world and seeing, I call them my kids, but seeing the people that have worked with me go on and become,
Yes.
a lot of them by force of habit have become incredible restaurateurs on their own, but there are other people who have succeeded in many other different ways.
That's right.
That have nothing to do with the hospitality industry.
Right.
That I get just as much joy being like, I'm happy I could be a tiny part
That's right.
of the foundation that helped you build.
It's soul satisfying,
It's
man.
so
And
satisfying.
It's humbling. And I was talking the other day about leadership as an act of service. Like it truly is about taking care of those in your charge. And that's humbling for me anyway. Right. I'm like, they don't need me. They can all go get other jobs, I need them though. Okay. Our rapid fire questions we ask all of our guests. What does hospitality mean to you?
I always use the ancient Greek definition, which is taking care of strangers or welcoming strangers.
There it is. Boom. John Fleer, ladies and gentlemen. What's your hope for the industry? Especially now as you still have the bakery. I don't mean to diminish the bakery at all. As your life changes significantly, what's your hope for the future of our industry?
My primary hope is that the model that I tried to create with Rhubarb of supporting the local community of farmers and artisans, etc., becomes ever more prominent.
Right.
And these are rapid fire, so I shouldn't expound too much.
You're good.
People use this phrase farm to table. Farm to table is a niche. But I want this to become a way of doing business.
Right.
Which expands beyond the restaurant industry. When it specifically regarding food, but that this organization, Equal Plates, is taking it from the other side, where we're buying at fair prices from local farmers to serve, feed, and nourish underserved communities. So that's the two extremes: the niche of the people who can afford to go to restaurants and support chefs like me. And then there's the other extreme, which for folks who can't afford anything, but still are getting a plate equal to what they'd be getting in my restaurant. Right. But then there's this vast middle, which is mostly institutional, schools, hospitals, whatever.
Right.
Where if we can conquer that piece of the puzzle in terms of our food supply, in terms of how we grow food and nourish people.
Game over.
Game over. Bring all those three together. Game over.
I like that.
I'd be happy.
I like that. Last question. So the name of the book that I wrote is Say Grace, and the podcast. And somebody said, was that religious? And I said, no. I said, in the South, at supper, you would sit around the table. Usually grandma would pick someone to say grace. And it was really what are you thankful for? So what are you thankful for?
I'm thankful for the opportunities that I have had. And I hope I continue to have. The opportunity to be a husband, the opportunity to be a father, not a grandfather yet, and the opportunity to try to build a restaurant culture that had an impact on my little part of the world.
You did. I tried.
You did.
John, thank you. It's great to see you as
you,
always. And thanks for joining us on Say Grace. If you liked what you heard, tell a friend. We're on all the major platforms. Thanks so much. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Say Grace, Food for Thought and Hospitality. We hope you join us next time as we continue to dive deeper into the inspirational stories about the transformative power of hospitality.